I don't really think I have to say like spoiler warning for this one, because if you're clicking on this video, I'm pretty sure you're knee deep into the Jujutsu Kaisen manga at this point. But you clicked on a good one, because we're going into a super spicy topic, and that is Gojo and the possibility of him coming back to life in the manga, like a realistic possibility. But in case you're like really casual and you forget that Gojo died or how it happened, so he was fighting Sukuna, and long story short, Sukuna used Maharaga, who is like the ultimate summon of the 10 Shadows, which is Megumi's curse technique. Megumi, who Sukuna is currently inhabiting, like he was Yuji in the beginning of the series. And Maharaga is essentially kind of like an AI, or a Jujutsu AI. Not literally, but that's kind of like how it works. What Maharaga did was essentially figure out how Gojo's limit list was using cursed energy to manipulate atoms, or reality, I guess you could say, at a molecular scale. This isn't outright said, I'm just guessing. This is how it works. And Sukuna used that fundamental on his own slash curse technique, or ability, whatever it truly is, and he used that to cut Gojo in half. As it literally says in the Viz, it extended all the way to space existence and the world themselves. And this literally did that. Gojo was cut in half, and he is presumed dead at this point. And if you're thinking like, whoa, that was pretty abrupt, you're right. It was extremely abrupt and out of nowhere, pretty shocking. And I respected the decision that Gege had made with that. And I thought, you know, Gojo doesn't really have to come back. I think it would be actually more interesting if he just stayed dead, and the series kind of just hits you with this cold, somber realization that no one is safe, and that this story isn't probably going to play out with the happy ending that you want it to have. That was, however, until I dug deep into the rabbit hole of how Gojo could be coming back. And I gotta say, guys, I think I tricked myself into inhaling a little copium, a little too much with this video, because I'm almost convinced that he's coming back after this. So let me explain it to you. So first of all, just like I said, it was really abrupt, and it didn't seem like we got proper closure with Gojo. Now again, it could be the narrative that Gege wants to put across here, or it was leading to something else. It was leading to Gojo coming back, I guess, because another thing with that whole sequence is we never really see anybody's reaction to it. After Gojo is quote-unquote killed by Sukuna, everybody just starts bum rushing him. Like, we got Kashimo coming in, we already knew that he was next up. But, you know, spoiler alert, Kashimo also got low diffed by Sukuna with the same ability that he killed Gojo with, except he made like a net of them. And then directly after that, Yuji and Higuruma dropped on him. But even before that, we saw Hikari going after Urarame, and now currently we're seeing Takaba going after Kenjaku. So it's possible that this is all happening so that they're distracting everyone so Gojo can come back. Now, another reaction we haven't seen was from Shoko. Shoko was, you know, like in the big three with Gojo back in the day, she's like the master of reverse curse technique, or at least implied to be. She's like a reverse curse technique genius. Like, she didn't really have to like study to figure it out. She could just inherently do it, or at least that's the implication with her character. So I just think it's odd that we never see her come up and react to Gojo, or try to help him, at least do something, you know? Like, even Jackie O tried to help Kennedy after, you know, that whole thing. So I just think that that should play a factor into the possibility of him coming back here. And it also goes into what Gojo said in chapter 221 as they're like setting up this battle with Sukuna. After he agrees to it, he's like, actually, I've got some things to do before I fight him. I'd like to mourn Suguru's body, but Sukuna's awfully tight with whoever's possessing Suguru thanks to a binding vow they made or something. So Gojo obviously never mourns Geto's body, unfortunately. So it's possible that he might come back to do that, but also these things that he has to do before the fight, we never really see them. We kind of just get this, I think it was like 1 month time skip in the next chapter. And that always kind of bothered me, because it's not guaranteed that we'll ever know everything that happened during that time skip. I mean, I hope we do. I hope that Gege's trying to do some kind of Pulp Fiction type of storytelling here, and we're coming back intermittently and seeing what happened. And maybe there was like this whole big contingency put in there for if Gojo were to be killed by Sukuna, they would just interact this plan to bring him back, or, you know, whatever. You distract everyone, and then Shoko or whoever goes over to Gojo and helps him. Or we just never see it, and Gege was kind of just cutting corners with that whole time skip sequence. But this is just the beginning of the craziness. This is just going into what we could see on the surface. So going back to Takaba versus Kenjaku, which is currently happening in the story right now. When Takaba encounters Kenjaku, he says, "At last I have arrived in Hakodate." And then Kenjaku says, "No, this is Iwate." And to somebody who's not from Japan, this doesn't really mean much to you. Maybe this is like, I don't know, a subtle joke that Gege is even making to the Japanese audience. But if we're taking into consideration the geography of things, it could play into what Gojo said in his death sequence montage thing. Because directly after Sukuna kills Gojo, we go into like this dream sequence where Gojo is at an airport with all of his dead friends. And then it's eventually said to Gojo that in the past, this is what Miss May said when I asked her about recommendations for leaving the country. If you want to start anew, head north. If you want to return to your old self, head south. And Nanami quickly answers the question, but we never get an answer from Gojo. He just says, "I see." And then the final thing that he says is, "I pray that this isn't just my imagination." And also the title of the chapter is Heading South. Now let's go back to the geography real quick. So Gojo and Sukuna took place in Shinjuku, and both Hakodate and Iwate are north of Shinjuku. However, Hakodate is north of Iwate. So in this instance of Takaba and Kenjaku speaking, so if Takaba is mixing up his north and south here, then possibly this could play into Gojo mixing up his as well, either inadvertently because of some outside interference that we're going to talk about, or deliberately, meaning he comes back to life, doesn't accept death, because it probably has something to do with Takaba. Now, the main thing that really sparked the whole interest in Takaba possibly bringing Gojo back to life was a post made by Miyamura, the spoilers guy. By the way, Miyamura, you made a new account on Twitter and you didn't follow me on it? What the heck, bro? But anyway, he pointed out that chapter 240, the chapter where Takaba actually starts fighting Kenjaku, is called Baka Survivor, or in Viz, Foolish Survivor. And Baka Survivor is the theme song for the anime Bobobo. You're probably familiar with that series if you're a millennial. It was on Toonami back in the day. And in the manga, apparently there is this sequence where Jelly Jiggler, or Tokoro Tenosuke, dies in a similar fashion to Gojo. Now, I dug enough to actually see these pages in these chapters and get some actual context on them. So, Jelly Jiggler, I don't think he's getting cut in half the way that Gojo is. It's more so like debris falling on him. But it does look extremely similar, almost so much that maybe it's not a coincidence, you know, because of the whole Baka Survivor thing. But the funny thing about this sequence, of course, I mean, Bobobo just in general is hilarious, but Jelly Jiggler dies in chapter 44 on page 31. And then, out of nowhere, 5 chapters later, chapter 49, he just reappears as if nothing happened. I mean, this is just, you know, typical Bobobo stuff. But does this mean that this is what Gege has intended the whole time? Like, Gojo is going to come back like this? Because if anybody could just do this, it's literally Takaba, because of his curse technique called comedian. Because when Takaba thinks of something he's certain that will be funny, it becomes reality. And it's actually even stated in the manga itself that it is a technique with enough potential to even oppose Gojo. But Takaba is utterly clueless of his own power, meaning that he probably isn't even aware that he has this ability. So, just off the top of my head, it's possible that with Takaba slowly mounting his comeback against Kenjaku here, he could just easily say something like, "It would be hilarious if Gojo just came back and wiped the floor with all of you guys." You know, something like that, to that extent. And then that's when we get the crazy Bobobo sequence where Gojo's just there. He's like, "Oh, hey guys." Because that's how Takaba's ability works. Literally, that's what has been happening with him and Kenjaku. I mean, we haven't seen any dead people come back to life, of course, but I'm not saying anything is off the table with this guy and what Gege plans to do with him. And the thing that I think is like the biggest smoking gun for Gojo coming back to life, just remove Takaba, remove Bobobo, all of that stuff, is that in chapter 239, this is right before Kenjaku runs into Takaba, he actually kills Hozonuki. And as he's killing him, he says, "That's why I aimed for your head. Even if you suck, You are one of the reincarnated ones, aren't you? Too bad this way you can't apply reverse curse technique from the neck down. And of course, Gojo was cut through the torso with his neck intact still. Now, if this isn't put there for a reason by Gege and he's just saying this and somehow forgets that he didn't have Gojo's head come off, then I'm surprised. This just seems like this is all connecting here. And it could have been an oversight by Sukuna. Sukuna is the Michael Jordan of Jujutsu for sure, but it is implied that Kenjaku knows the finer details, like the nuances, a little better than Sukuna. Although he's nowhere near as powerful as him, of course. Although he could be slightly more intelligent in, Jujutsu. Or it's even possible that Sukuna pulled like a Goku and he intentionally left Gojo to possibly be revived so he could fight him again. I don't know, but this really made me think the most that Gojo's probably coming back because, like I said, Shoko, we don't know what's going on with her. We don't know what's going on with anybody else, honestly, besides the ones that we see are currently in battles. So this could have all been one big elaborate thing to bring back Gojo this whole time. Now, before I end this one, let me also just say that, like I said before, I'm fine with Gojo being dead. I actually think it was pretty cool the way that it was just so shocking. However, if Gojo does come back, I get it from a business standpoint. It's like, wow, you're just generating these two massively viral internet breaking moments. You get to have Gojo dying, and then you also get to have Gojo come back. And you know who's gonna love that? The casuals. You know who's probably not going to love that? The hardcores, because it kind of breaks the story in a way, or potentially breaks it. I'm fine with Gojo coming back if he doesn't steal the thunder of the other characters, because this whole thing was like fostering the new generation, right? I mean, that's kind of like the stereotype of the big three manga right now. I mean, even Nanami mentions this to Gojo in their final moments in that airport sequence. He says, "Without a hesitation, I chose somewhere south. I'm such a backward looking person, and yet I bet on the future in my final moment." So I don't think I'm fence sitting this one. I'm just gonna let Gege cook, and I hope that the dish is good, okay? But let me know what you think about this. Is Gojo coming back? Is he not? Do you care? Do you not care? Let me know. And if you like the video, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.